Hello and welcome to our webinar all about boosting student engagement and encouraging independent learning. Thank you so much for being here with us remotely from wherever you're joining us. I hope that you'll find this a really helpful session for thinking about ways that you can use Educake to get your students to complete more practice work independently. My name is Alison. I'm the Teacher Engagement Lead at Educake, and I'm here today with my colleague Haley, who's an account manager. She's going to show you all the different ways that students can use Educake above and beyond completing homework. So ways that students can set themselves quizzes, view their progress, and take ownership of their learning. We're also thrilled to have Jen Taylor here as our expert guest. She's the curriculum leader for science at Woodchurch High School. She's going to talk to you about how she has used these and other tools within her own school setting and what she's found to be successful. Before we get started, I just want to draw your attention to the Q&A feature of this webinar. It's at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions for any of us, please do type them there. We'll go through them and answer them at the end. I'm now going to hand over to Jen, who's going to talk about her approach to getting students engaged with their revision and independent learning. Right, over to you, Jen.
Hi there, good evening everybody. So just a bit of an overview about me really. So I'm a new curriculum leader for science at Woodchurch High School. This is a school that is mixed, that is on Merseyside. We've got about 1,800 students and is an area with very high PP and SEND. So I used Educake for the first time at my previous school and I launched it and then I changed schools. So I relaunched it again here. So it was, interesting to start again somewhere else and sort of I knew where the strengths are of the program. So when I started here, I could go straight into it with a new cohort, if you like. So really, the reason that we started using Educake was to increase engagement, increase retrieval, and essentially increase attainment across all year groups and engagement with the subject. So how we've approached Educake, we use it for several different methods really. So we set it as a homework. We use it as a formative assessment tool and we use it so students can revise independently. So in terms of what we're doing for homework, with Key Stage 3, they are doing, depending on the number of teachers they've got, one Educake per week. And that consists of 15 questions that we expect 100% pass rates on. So students are told that they have to get every single question right. And that means that they've got to do it more than once. And I think initially there was a little bit of kickback, why have we got to get everything right? But essentially, students repeated it, and then they're at a point where they're pleased to know that they're getting 100%, even if that's taken several goes, and it's helping them retain it because they've done it multiple times. And then what happens is when they come into class on the day that the homework is due, we give them the same questions again. So we usually do 10 of the 15. And initially, as I say, they were a bit like, why are you asking these questions again? But when they see that they're getting them all right, they've got a real sense of achievement because, they're sat next to their peers and they can say, actually, I'm doing okay. I can see the value in this because I'm getting them all right. And they know they didn't first time and I can see how they performed first time. But I think that sense of confidence is helping them with their mindset towards science. So that's really, really positive. The other tool, obviously, it lets me see where students' gaps are and what I need to do as a teacher to try and plug those gaps. So on the breakdown that you can see on the screen there, I know that you've all got different you're all at different levels in terms of how much Educake experience you've got. This is a typical student homepage. So this will be for a Key Stage 4 student who has homework from multiple teachers from each discipline. And you can see sort of the due dates, etc. Now, the study and quiz yourself section there gives the students the breakdown of how they're performing in each science. So that allows them to independently go, actually, this is what I need to work on when they're coming up with tests, when they know that they need to sort of consolidate knowledge, that they need to practice, that's a source for them. But obviously, as a teacher, I get a breakdown of it as well. And I can see, all right, students all got question 2 wrong the first time. I need to go back and teach that. And that will then inform my retrieval practice or my starter tasks to make sure that I'm revisiting that, I suppose. And then what students can also do is they can use the revision wizard, which you can see in the top left-hand corner. And that's where students want to take a little bit of control over their learning and say, right, This is what I want to use. Do I want to use the study guides? Do I want to revise a certain topic? So that gives them a little bit more choice, whereas the study and quiz yourself is where the students need to target certain areas, and then they can see these progress bars changing. So one area that we know that we need to work on in science and target is the maths and the working scientifically. And that's evident in the likes of the Pixel reports and the Ofsted science reports. So it's really nice for us that that is isolated, because as you can see, the staff for this particular quiz have not really been setting at those sort of areas. So I think it allows us to be really reflective as well. So as well as using it for homework in the way that I've just described, we use it for formative assessments. So at the end of short pieces of work, we will invite the students into a computer room, or we have laptop trolleys, and they will sit and do an assessment just on a small area of work. And that's not something that we use for reporting, and I don't even really write it down anywhere. I use that to inform my practice. So then after the assessment lesson, we do a couple of different things. We do a sort of recap, gap plug-in type lesson where I tailor that specifically to where the common trends are and misconceptions, and even specific trends with specific students. And then the other thing that I do after an assessment lesson is I've started using Educake to do a benchmarking quiz, so, or a baseline if you like. So we do the assessment lesson. That takes about half an hour. So let's say I've taught cells to year 7, they've done a half an hour assessment. And then if I know the next topic coming up is, say, mixtures, I'll do a benchmark with maybe Key Stage 2 knowledge on that, or the basics of Key Stage 3. So when I'm getting prepared to teach my following lesson, I've got information on where the misconceptions are on the cells unit, so I can make sure I'm addressing them. And then when I go on to teach the first mixtures lesson, I'm not wasting time doing a recap, because I can see, right, well, this is what the students know on the whole. This is where I'm going to go moving forward and how I'm going to tailor my lesson appropriately. The other thing that I'm planning to use Educake for, they've just launched the Key Stage 2, so I'm going to start looking at how I can use it to baseline our primary students, because something, again, that's come from the Ofsted report is that science in primaries is not prioritised as much as it should be. Okay, science teachers, the English and maths in primary, 83% or something similar to that of primary teachers see English and maths as being a priority, and they don't rate science in the same way. And that's, plus on the back of COVID, has put us in a position where I've got a class in front of me in year 7 where students have all had a totally different experience of science. And that's really hard as a year 7 teacher going on to teach. So I'm teaching reproduction to year 7 at the moment, and I'm expecting them to know what a sperm and egg cell is, or the differences between boys and girls. And some of them have never come across it at all. So what I'm going to do coming up next week is I'm going to do some baseline assessments with a selection of year 7 students from different primary schools to get an idea of what they have and haven't covered in the detail from primary. And we've got a primary liaison link that works with us in science, and I'm going to ask her to start back informing those primary staff and say, okay, your students have come to our school, they haven't really grasped this topic, we're going to offer you support. Because ultimately, if we can have those students on an even playing field as possible coming from primary, that's going to make it easier for us as science teachers in year 7, and it's going to help speed up the progress that they make. So as I say, that primary idea is something that is very much in the early stages. But as with all the other tools that Educake offer, I think that's going to be something that's really going to support the teaching and learning in our department. So just moving on to what I said about building metacognitive skills. Okay, I think the other really good thing about Educake is that communication between students and teachers. So I really strongly encourage students to disagree with their mark if they are not happy with. So when an Educate quiz is set, let's say the answer is filtration and the student has written the word filter. When I'm in an assessment with the students, they're putting their hands up going, well, I think I get that right and I deserve the mark. And I'm encouraging them, right, okay, well, click refer to your teacher. I can't remember what the wording is. There's a button they can press to get the teacher to check it. And if they know that they're right, I think encouraging them to take ownership of that and saying, right, yeah, okay, refer it to me and I will check it, because sometimes misspellings come up as well. And it's as well as teaching them the correct language required or the correct spelling required. It's giving them that confidence to call me out on things, I suppose, and make sure that they are understanding the concepts in detail. Because there was one that came through to me today. The student had written filter instead of filtration, and I still gave them a mark. But another student wrote distillation instead of filtration, and it opened that forum for me to say to them, this is why you're wrong. And if that student hadn't referred it to me, we wouldn't have had that conversation. So that's really positive. And just as I say, in terms of the slide that's on the board, this has come from the revision wizard, just about the students taking a bit of control. And rather than me saying, this is how you revise, or students coming to me saying, I don't know how to revise, Educake offers them lots of different ways of approaching this. They've got the revision wizard and the study and quiz, and then they've got the study guide section, which is really, really good. Okay, so rather than them relying on using websites or textbooks, those resources are really good at saying to the students, well, actually, go and read that and then do the quiz. Because I think something I find students struggle with a lot is them not knowing how to revise, and this package gives them everything that they need. It gives them the choice what is best for them in terms of their learning style. Okay, so in terms of what we then do with the data, so we have every term subject review meetings with the head teacher. So as well as discussing various other topics, I presented to him how Educake was improving the results and the attainment of our students. So I did insert, I think, into the blog that I put up a scatter graph, which just showed how the attainment in assessments and the attainment on Educake correlates positively, which is really positive. And then when I'm having conversations with the head teacher and he's talking about budgets, and is this being effective? Well, there you go, black and white. Okay, that is the impact that it's having. So that was just a really useful tool that we had. And then in terms of how we reward students, because their engagement's actually been really, really positive, I think because the homework is short and they like the fact that they can repeat it and they can get that 100% score. We haven't really had major issues with engagement and students doing homework in the same way that I think we would have if I was giving out worksheets. So what we have in our main science corridor, I've got a leaderboard that I update every week. And that has the top 5 or 3, depending on what point we are in the term, students. And what I find, which I think is really important, is that I use the students that are answering the most questions rather than those that are scoring the highest, because that means that it's accessible to all. Okay, and students are actually quite competitive about it. I wasn't sure, but often the older ones are quite competitive. And I also schedule an email every week that goes home to parents just to inform them that they've made the top 3 or the top 5. And I do the same to form tutors, just so that, you know, the idea of the form teachers reading them out, this is who's in the top 3, and it just gives that little bit of competition and lets them see, you know, that we see the value in what they're doing. The other thing that I've done this last year, I started, obviously the word cake is in Educake, so, you know, everyone likes cake. It was an idea of mine to start rewarding them with a bit of a tea party. So what I've got now taking place is, depending on the time of year, so at Christmas, I am going to be hosting another Educake tea party. I'm going to buy a load of cake, you know, really it costs me about £20 maybe, a load of drinks, and I issue invitations, a bit like a golden ticket, Willy Wonka style, and the students compete to get out of lessons for 30 minutes, the last 30 minutes of the day, to get this. And, you know, as I say, the year 11s, particularly the boys, are fighting for this ticket, and even if they have got no interest in science, they want to get this cake and get to this tea party. So, you know, they see it as that's what they're winning, but really what they're getting out of it is it's improving their science. And the fact that they don't realise is that there's an underlying agenda is even better, because they're not seeing it as work, as hard work. So that's something really, really positive. And last year, somebody from Educake came in and helped me with the awards, and we gave out loads of prizes. And it's just something nice because it rewards the students for their hard work, and it shows that we recognise what they are doing. And as I say, often we've got students right at the bottom end with the lower targets that are really showing that, they've got that drive to do well. So just looking at what I've got next on my things to talk about. So in terms of accessibility, so we have obviously the Educake app. The Educake mobile sites can be used on mobile phones. Students can do it on Chromebooks and tablets, which is great because they've not got the excuse, they've not lost anything. It's not that they can't do it. And because it links up to Google, students are finding it easy to log in because they can log in with a Google account, if that applies to if you're a Google school. The other thing that we do is at lunchtime, we have a study support session. So students can come and do it if they've forgotten to do it for whatever reason. So it's rather than a detention, it's more of a sort of come and do it and we'll support you with it. It's a place that students can come if they don't want to do their homework at home. So it's just giving them that option to, really support them doing it. Or if they want to come and do some extra practice to try and boost the chance of being involved in the competitions. Sometimes students just want to get out of the rain, but it's a space where they can safely come and do their homework, where they know that they're going to just have it as an extra opportunity. And that's just how we support it. So the science teachers take turns manning that of a lunchtime. We were doing it after school last year, but we found the take up of that to not be as high. I think that's pretty much me done talking. I don't think I've missed anything, but please prompt me towards the end if I've forgotten anything.
Thank you so much, Jen. Really appreciate that sharing, and I'm sure everyone watching has already got some great tips from everything that you've shared, and just really lovely to see how you're bringing that positive reinforcement into everything that you're doing, but Educake sort of being a really big part of that as you walk your way through those areas as well. So just to introduce myself, my name's Hayley. I'm an account manager here at Educake, and I just thought I'd take the opportunity to share really briefly the areas that we focus on with Educake to make sure that student engagement is as easy as possible. My role here at Educake is to work with teachers to support them to get the very best of their Educake subscriptions. So very often I'll have conversations with teachers such as Jen, like she's just shared, discussing their student engagement levels and perhaps how we can get involved and help support you with the data that you need to perhaps some of those competitions or those incentives that you might have mentioned just then. So how Educake supports student engagement. The biggest thing we focus on is ease of use. We see that, if students can access Educake easily and find it simple to use, that's really like the kind of main thing that we aim towards everything we do when we're developing Educake. And Jen mentioned this with regards to accessibility, but it's just so important to us that students can access Educake wherever, whenever, any device, any browser, and it is completely screen adaptive. We know that lots of students will access their homework via a mobile device or, tablets and things like that. And it's just really important to us that they can do that and it's easily accessible from anywhere. Just like we've heard, we really work towards the idea that everything is like that positive reinforcement and increasing their confidence with independence learning. And I'll kind of talk you through a couple of slides, which we've already touched on anyway. And again, just recapping that idea that it really is about keeping that communication between teachers and students open, and that really easy to read, simple reporting that helps you track and celebrate your students' achievements so that it's that sort of full circle, really. So just a bit more information on that. I think you covered this beautifully, Jen, so I won't cover this too much, but just a very easy, simple to read screen here. This is a student's view, and what you've got on there is the teacher set tasks in the orange, the opportunity for them to retake them in the green, and then their purple area, gently hand holding them, if you like, by pointing them in the right direction of the areas that they'd like to sort of study more and improve their scores, with that gentle encouragement of those sort of red, amber, green scores and that revision wizard that we've heard of there already. then just to highlight how that communication between teachers and students is encouraged throughout the platform, the reason we make sure that is possible is just to really make sure it's clear that there is a teacher behind the quizzing. You know, the idea that it isn't just an online resource that could get forgotten about, or does it matter if they do it or not? It's ensuring that there is that full loop, if you like. So that ability to query marks that Jen mentioned is so important. So if a student disagrees with a mark, then they get an option to pop a comment in and send the message to their teacher. And then you'll see the next area on that section here, which says review one query, will pop up for the teacher to be able to see. And then as a teacher, you can review the query and give feedback to the student. So in this instance, just like we've heard, if you think that actually the understanding was there and you're happy to, you can override the mark. And then just on the right-hand side of the screen, we've just got information about how the students are given the opportunity to evaluate their work. So reflection and looking at, you know, what went well for them in the test, what didn't quite go so well, and anything they're going to do to improve. When they complete that, that's all available for the teacher to view. And then the teacher can give relevant feedback to that if they choose to. So again, just really keeping that regular two-way communication going throughout the process to help support that throughout every quiz, and just building that confidence again as they work their way through. And then really simple screenshots here of just some of the reporting and resources that are available that could support you in some of the things that you might think would be good for you to work on in your school. So I've started with the student league tables because I think that's initially what we talked about with regards to simple view of number of questions answered. And you can see there the final column is questions set themselves. So you might choose to do that based on their total questions answered, or you might be encouraging some independent study there as well. That can be filtered by year, by class, by subject. So you can certainly do those league tables at whatever level you wish to do throughout your school and how that would work for you. The Educake certificate there is a screenshot of a certificate available to download from your homepage. There is a resources section on the top right of your homepage, and in there you will find the certificate of achievement and also other resources to help with that. So it might be there is a short video that has been designed to share with students, so with the students' focus in mind. And there is also a parent video on there that demonstrates how Educate works, so that if they want a bit of an understanding how to support their students, their sort of children, should I say, then they can do that as well. And then just to the right-hand side of this screen, I've got a couple of images from our Analyse Results section. Now, there are so many different lenses you can look through in our Analyse Results area, and depending on the data that you're wanting to use to support your student engagement, then you can look at this in different ways: the percentage correct, strengths and weaknesses, or questions answered. But just for demonstration's sake today, I've just taken two images here. Essentially what I'm looking at is the total number of questions answered. So if I'm just looking at how much my students are engaging with Educake, this is a perfect viewpoint of being able to see, in this instance, all science and all subjects within science. And I'm currently looking at the individual year groups. And I can see the total number of questions answered in year 11 for GCSE science is 387,000 plus. However, it might be that I only want to look at that information for independent study. If you were incentivising students to maybe build their independent study skills, and perhaps you were looking at more year 11 and wanting to track how much they were doing outside of the classroom towards exam season, then you can look at that data as student-only questions. And again, it just enables you to really simply see the data that you need to support the things that you personally want to celebrate and recognise in your school, that can offer that positive reinforcement that we've heard, that can really go on to increase student engagement there as well. So they're just a couple of examples. There are plenty more. And I think that kind of opens the perfect chance to say that there are plenty more, and we couldn't possibly cover all of the areas in Educake today. But every single school that has a subscription with Educake will have a designated account manager here. And we love having those conversations and directing you to the areas of Educake that would help you get what you need from it most. And we know that that's different for every school. So we love to talk to you about that and be able to point you in the right direction. If you feel that would be useful, then a very simple email to support@educate.co.uk will allow us to book something in for you so that we can get the ball rolling there and support you even further. I think that's everything for me. I'll pass back over to Alison for our question and answer session, I think.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you so much to Jen and Hayley for those presentations, the loads of strategies and really specific techniques for getting students more engaged with independent learning. I'm now going to turn to the Q&A, so some of the questions that you've submitted to us. So one question is the revision wizard something that's available for only science? Hayley, would you like to take that one?
I'm really sorry. I was getting carried away trying to get my Educake open in the background. I've missed the question.
Oh, no, that's all right. I will happily take this. Sorry to put you on the spot there. I can say that, yes, Revision Wizard is available for all the subjects that Educake offers. So again, it's that button, the blue button in the top left of their screen. Whatever subject your students subscribe to for Educake, or your school subscribes to, that your students can access, they can do so through the Revision Wizard. I guess the one difference is if you use Educake for primary, so if you primarily use it with students between years 3 and 6, it just has a different name. It's called Practice, but it does a very similar thing where students are given questions to engage with. Yeah, so it's available for all subjects. I've got 2 questions here that are related that are for Jen. So how do you decide who is top 3 of the leaderboard? Is it accuracy and number of questions? And the other question is, how do you decide who gets an invitation to the Termly celebration?
Yep, sure. So in terms of the top 3 on the leaderboard, if you go onto your Educate homepage, there is a league table section. So you can pull that up and change the date range and the year group, and then you can sort it according to the number of questions answered. So what I've done the last few times is I've screenshot the top 10 or the top 5, and I've been posting it on Google Classroom to say, this is who's currently in the top 10. And then, yeah, like that screen on the board there. And then maybe a few days later, this is who's now in the top 10, to encourage those that are maybe not quite in the top 5 to move up a little bit. So I update them that way. And then in terms of the party, I just choose the top 5 in each year group, top 5 in terms of questions answered. Now, what I'll be doing this time is the top 5 between September and Christmas. And then when I do the parties at Easter and the summer, I'll probably start the terms afresh to give the students a chance to have a go if they haven't been, doing so well already. Last year, I think I invited a couple of students that were the top for the term, and then a couple that were the top for the year to date. Hope that answers your question.
That's great, thank you. So we've got another question that I think is probably best for Jen. So what do you do for the students who don't engage? So you've got all these initiatives. What do you do for those who still don't?
I think, to be honest, it's not something that I've really had that much of a problem with. And, I was a bit surprised by that based on, the sort of the dynamic of the students in our area, I suppose. But students do engage with it because there's no reason not to. 15 questions takes about 5 minutes once a week. There isn't always 100% students doing it. We try and speak to them rather than just sanctioning it straight away. Find out what it is that's the barrier to them doing it. And if it's that they forgot, then obviously we would offer an extension if need be. But the study support is something that we direct the students to. So that's generally what we do with the students that are not engaging, but it's even something that we set as work. We have some students on alternative provision that are being educated off-site for whatever reason, or if they have been excluded, they're accessing that at home. So it might be that if a student has had a big period of time off, they sit and they do a load of catch up at once. But to be honest, it's not something that we've got as a battle.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's just about all the time that we have. Thank you so much for those of you who've asked questions. If we didn't get to your question, I can see them there, so we can follow up with you later on. Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to let you know about a specific student engagement initiative that we're running from now until the end of term. It's our student revision contest. Any student who logs into Educake and answers 10 questions using that revision wizard that we were talking about earlier, each week between now and the 22nd of December will automatically be entered into a prize draw to win a £50 retail voucher. If you want to know more about that, so there have been a couple of emails about that. If you just want to find out more, there's an article on our blog site, which you can find at educake.co.uk/blog. It'll be the first article there if you want to read more about that. We've also got a PowerPoint presentation there that you can use to tell your students about it, to hopefully give them a little bit of more external motivation to do a little bit of regular revision each week. So that brings us to the end of the webinar. Just to let you know that we've recorded this session, and everyone who signed up will receive an email with a link to the video of it by the end of this week. Thank you again so much to Jen and to Haley, and to all of you who watched and who asked questions and took part. I hope it's given you some really useful ideas to add to your teaching toolkit. Right, that's it. Thanks very much for watching, and goodbye for now.